Under the title Framework Conditions for Business and Investment, the conference focused on how to drive forward the framework conditions for more business and investment opportunities in compact countries. In his remarks, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed explained the progress of Ethiopia's homegrown economic reforms, through which macroeconomic, structural and sectoral reforms have been put in place to create a conducive investment climate. He also further asserted that despite the challenges that Ethiopia has been confronted with in the domestic political environment, with COVID-19 as well as the desert locust challenges that we had experienced over the past years, Ethiopia remains committed to continue with its economic reforms. And particularly on the economic reforms, a bit of a deep dive will be provided by Dr. Eyob. Our second activity update from last week is on Saturday, August 28th. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed handed over keys for newly renovated homes to impoverished community members in the Abware area. These houses had been undergoing reconstruction over the past weeks, 8 weeks, after he initiated the launch of the annual house renovations program in June 2021. And the importance of this particular activity is the tradition of demolishing these dilapidated houses of impoverished sections of our society and renovating and rebuilding during the rainy season has been an ongoing activity since the Prime Minister initiated in 2018. And higher government officials and various federal and regional entities, as you've witnessed over the past few weeks, have also been undertaking similar work in different parts of the country. So this is also an opportunity to put out the call to the private sector and other groups of individuals to also engage on this initiative. Lastly, to give you an update on the visits that His Excellency had made over the weekend. On Saturday, August 29th and Monday, August 30th, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed traveled with his delegation to Kampala, Uganda and Kigali, Rwanda, and also met with President Yoweri Museveni and President Paul Kagame respectively. The focus of these discussions centered on strengthening bilateral ties between each of the countries. They also held discussions on regional and international issues of mutual concern. As you all know, Prime Minister has been championing regional economic integration agenda over the past 3 years. So these working visits and interactions are a natural progression of the agenda that the Prime Minister has been championing that acknowledges that African states have to ensure that they're adequately addressing challenges which are considered important, and considering that enabling peace and security is also anchored in economic stability, the Prime Minister's integration agenda is crucial not only for the Horn region, but East Africa and the wider continent. So this is the context in which the visits to Uganda and Rwanda have been undertaken. In addition, some engagements and conversations have also taken place with regards to national issues. So with these brief updates, I will hand over the floor to His Excellency Dr. Eyob Takalling, who will give you a bit of a deep dive into economic concerns and issues that you may raise. Thank you, Dr. Eyob.
Thank you so much, Bilene, and good afternoon, everyone. I understand a couple of questions have been raised about the state of the Ethiopian economy, and understandably so, given the multiple shocks that the economy faced lately. I think these questions are understandable. So I would like to use this opportunity initially to briefly highlight some of the achievement across the economy and the challenge we face, but also touch upon our view of the medium-term economic outlook. I mean, generally speaking, I think it won't be an exaggeration to say the Ethiopian economy has exhibited a remarkable performance. The economy remained resilient and maintained a stable and promising path. And this despite multiple shocks from coronavirus pandemic, global slowdown, the locust invasion, and also the security challenge that we faced in the northern part of Ethiopia. I mean, despite this challenge, overall, the economy has stayed on course. And we believe this is the result of the broad-based reform that we've been implementing across the economy over the last, especially over the last 1.5 to 2 years after the launch of the Homegrown Economic Reform Program, which, as you remember, aimed at macro stabilization, unlocking new potential, and setting the foundation for a long-term sustainable development. Clearly, it's always difficult to measure the counterfactual, right? So those of you who have been diligently following the Ethiopian economy know too well, I believe, how much of a boost the reform has been across the economy. But what we don't know is the counterfactual. How far would have been achieved through these reforms? How big the performance would have been had it not been for the major economic shocks we faced, is the question that we all ask. Or how bad could the situation be if we've not managed early on to put in robust, strategic, insightful economic reforms. When occasionally you see some news articles with the storyline of I quote, Ethiopia's economy battered by this and that, and then you get into the news article and you find difficult to specify or see evidence for the ailment of the economy, and you see that really it just poses more question to analysts as how this economy has fared than its ailment. So I would like to walk you through some of what we think are critical achievements on the economic front and the challenge that we face in the spirit of the context that I have just set out. On the macro front, we believe we have implemented deeper reforms that have helped us ensure stability, encourage economic activity and private sector development, job creation, and set the institutions and capacity for sustainable growth. You recall the previous fiscal year, 2012 fiscal year, we've registered about 6.1% economic growth despite the global economic slowdown. And this year, we're still waiting for the data from the National Planning Commission, which would come out probably end of Maskaram, end of September, early October. But when you look at some high-frequency data, it shows that there should be a further rebound in the economy. Actually, you might be able to register something better than what we've done last year. I will not get into this high-frequency data, but generally, for you to get a sense of things, if you look at agricultural productivity, for instance, I have the 10 months data. Generally, annual production, according to the last 10 months, was about 5.56%, which, as you know, is much higher than the usual 4.5 or so. But what is phenomenal, when you look at dry seasonal irrigation, for instance, it increased by 220.6%. Again, when the year ends and you get full data, I'm sure it would be quite surprising for many. And if you look at other data, gold extraction, export figures, 23% increase. Commercial bank and DB overall revenue, insurance companies revenue has also increased respectively by 22 and 16%, loans 33%, deposit about 30%, Ethiopian Airlines cargo about 46% increase, export, as you know, even end year was about 19%. But also there are some sectors where we've had some challenge. Tourism, for instance, is down by 35%, and Ethiopian Airlines passenger has significantly declined. But on average, what this high frequency data tells you is that a rebound and a better performance than last year. By last year, I mean 2012, Ethiopian calendar is expected. But if you get a little bit into the export performance, financial sector development and domestic revenue, I think you would notice a very notable growth. Export clearly is consistently peaking, right? I mean, despite close to a decade-long stagnation. 3.6 billion in export receipts, about 19% from the previous fiscal year. I think it's a phenomenal achievement given the challenge we had this year. And the absolute figure itself, adding 600 million in 1 year. What this tells you is if we continue to do that in the next couple of years, 600 million, a billion every year, how that would change the overall balance of payment, the overall debt position of the country. I will leave it to you. But interesting to note in this performance, what worked out is a very conscious, deliberate policy decision, both on the agricultural and mining fronts. When mining over 1,000% grows, mainly because we've been able to remove the structural bottlenecks in the sector. But again, this is not a sheer luck. It came out of hard work, a conscious policy decision that brought this. On the financial sector side, you will see that the sector is expanding. It's undergoing through a rapid transformation with increasing digitalization and financial innovation. Saving, for instance, as I said, a loan increased by 30.3% from 1 trillion to 1.4 trillion. Loans, new credits have increased by 21.5%. And out of this, the lion's share went to the private sector, over 70%, consistent with our direction of rebalancing the role of the private sector and the government in the Ethiopian economy. I know there is interest on this sustainability. I think I'm happy to report that we've been prudent in taking measures that will reduce the risk of debt distress, including reprofiling and restructuring of debts. But we have religiously maintained a zero limit on concessional loans, which, as I will tell you shortly, has helped significantly reduce the debt to GDP ratio. The June 2021, this June figure shows that debt to GDP has come down to 50%, which is an 8 percentage point decline from 2019, 8 percentage points. But more interestingly, if you look at debt service to export and debt service to revenue ratio, this has also improved by 2 to 3 percentage points annually in the last couple of years. June number again, debt service to export stood at 24%, showing a reduction from 26.4% in 2019. This tells you that we are really on track, as we've been saying, towards our goal of meeting moderate debt distress by the end of the reform period, because export performance is the most critical variable on our debt reprofiling effort. We have enough space, as we always say, in terms of debt to GDP ratio, but as export improves and our servicing capacity improves, this will significantly enhance our overall debt stature. On the investment front, I will not take much time, but of the 3.9 billion FDI growth, phenomenal. This, of course, includes the Safaricom Consortium's license fee, but this is remarkable given the negative international news about the country in general, currency convertibility issues that come up, and the security challenge in the north. What we view this as a sign of confidence generally by astute investors, investors that understand the macro fundamentals. They will see that the fundamentals of the economy, despite the short-term challenges, are still robust at large. And also, probably, people pay attention to the serious efforts we've done over the last year, 2 years, in overhauling our investment law and procedures, simplifying investment and reducing the time and cost of regulatory procedures. The investment law and the new commercial code have been game changers because they modernize the investment and business institutions to meet global standards. We are digitalizing our business processes from business registration and licenses to tax payment and construction permits. I think overall, the signal is we are serious when we talk about doing business easier in Ethiopia and creating investor confidence, and that we believe has paid off by and large. But as we do this, we've not lost sight of addressing the structural deficiencies of the economy. We're working to address structural deficiencies in the economy, including productivity improvements across sectors and reduction of high import dependence. The efforts underway to substitute import commodities like wheat and edible oil. This notion of no land should be left behind, and under this mantra, large tracts of lands that were initially arable are now put to use. And one additional point I want to highlight is how we have been revising our agricultural and industrial development policies. We now have a new agricultural policy, probably a new one after two and a half decades, that has already been reviewed by the macro team and went to the Council of Ministers for approval. And we are sharpening our industrial policy tools to engender strong and broad-based domestic manufacturing. In this regard, the recently announced custom tariff reform, I think, is very phenomenal, because it had slashed the tariff rates on raw materials and intermediate goods significantly, and we believe this would enhance domestic production capacity. To just give you a sense of what this means, before this, manufacturers used to pass through at least 4 government institutions, going through that bureaucratic bottleneck to get a tax-free privilege for their inputs as manufacturers. And this process usually takes about a year or so. Now this has all been simplified. What an importer needs to do is to just import, and at the customs border, the new tariff rate would be applicable. This is profound, especially for the domestic manufacturing sector. But overall, including how much we've invested into agriculture by making agricultural machinery duty free, but also by availing the required resources, the amount of input that has been imported this year, the improved seeds, it tells you that we are serious about enhancing productivity in general. The final update I have on key development is on development cooperation. Here, we have 2 measurements, what we call inflow and commitments. By inflow, we are referring to the amount of money disbursed during that fiscal year, and commitment refers to the agreements you see our colleagues in the Ministry of Finance signing. That's what we call commitment. So in terms of the inflow, we've actually registered 3.9 billion, which is 80% of the plan for the annual year, and commitment is actually higher, about 3.9 billion, and 90.5% of the annual plan performance. So as Ministry of Finance, as a government in general, we're very pleased on both the inflow and the commitment levels. There, of course, as you know, we have some issues with our partners. There are some misunderstandings on issues of humanitarian issues they raise. We feel our partners fail to understand the serious risk the terrorist group TPLF had planned, not only for Ethiopia but for the entire region. But I think this is clearing over time. But generally, from east to west, we are grateful for our partners for their support in our development endeavors, including the response to our humanitarian needs. Now, on some of the challenge, I think probably I will leave to you to ask where you would want me to focus more, but understand on inflation, on exchange rate issues, some questions have been raised, so I'll just say a few points in this regard. On inflation, definitely this is the major macro challenge that we are struggling with. Now, given the persistent challenge, I think we have started to take a multiple-pronged approach to tackle inflation on all fronts. On the monetary policy side, I think some of the expansionary measures that we have taken early on the last couple of years to mitigate the effects of COVID-19, and also the cost increase due to probably the domestic conflict might have increased inflationary challenge. So the National Bank, as you probably have noticed, just this week has introduced measures to further tighten the monetary stance. We've raised the reserve requirement ratio from 5% to 10%, and the individual lending facility rate from 13% to 16%. But these are first set of measures. I must point out that NB stands ready to utilize all available tools at its disposal to ensure price and economic stability. But as we've been saying, the critical challenge of the economy is supply side. So in that regard, we are addressing supply side challenge by enhancing productivity. Ministry of Agriculture is now working on actually not only the 10-year plan, but a 1-year plan where they focus on, if you look at the inflationary basket, you would see that about 10, 11 critical food commodities are contributing significantly to inflationary spiral. So in that sense, there would be a focused intervention where we would enhance productivity across different sectors of the economy, focusing on these commodities and in different parts of the country. This will be more than the usual cultivating on land mantra. It will be focused, targeting specific commodities that we think are contributing specifically to food inflation. But also in the short term, in terms of availing basic commodities, we are now in the process of importing significant amount of wheat. I'm not too enthusiastic about importing wheat, I must be honest with you, because we wanted to completely move away from this. But currently, as you know, we have serious humanitarian challenge, so we have to take short-term measures. About 600,000 metric ton is being imported, but additional 400,000 might be imported for the whole year, so which is about 1 million metric ton of wheat, and about 53 million liters of edible oil, both from overseas and also domestic production that will be distributed across the country for the next couple of months. But another critical issue we are focusing on is the market structure. So we are very optimistic that the new government structure will fundamentally address the market structure issue by clarifying the mandates of government institutions and strengthening our regulatory capacity. Probably Blenheim might arrange another session for you to understand what kind of government is being planned. I think it's one of the most profound restructuring in the history of this government, where institutional mandates have been really clarified, the bureaucratic hurdles removed, and we feel this is going to be the most effective government in terms of its mandate and its delivering capacity. Now, on forex availability issues, as you know, this has been one of the key reform measures, and we've said very clearly we want to address the issue from its roots. The government understanding is that shock therapy and quick measures to improve the exchange rate issue has not been useful, has not been positive in the past. So that's why we are taking a measured approach. The rationale for taking a measured approach is to ensure the smooth transition through easing forex supply, constrains the economy, building forex buffers, including export receipts, and unwinding the expansionary fiscal and monetary policies. So this we are approaching this holistically rather than focusing on shock therapy or quick wins. So the reform generally has been very successful. If you look at last year's overall, the forex market was showing promising improvement, more than 30% narrowing down of the parallel market premium. Of course, this has been eroded the last few weeks because of non-economic issues, as you know, that probably had pushed up the parallel market, which we are correcting through administrative measures. But the general direction of taking this measured approach and then making the exchange rate, the forex shortage an issue is something that we've not taken our eyes off. We're moving forward this reform, and as we've said within the timeline, we'll be addressing this problem from its roots once and for all. Finally, on the cost of the conflicts in the north to the economy, I think this would require a number of research analysis to understand the full cost of the economy. But I must say, conflict is costly. The Prime Minister said during his acceptance speech as a Nobel laureate, war is the epitome of hell for all involved. So, in fact, the way we see it, had it not been for the thoughtful and strategic measures we have taken early on by introducing sweeping reforms across the economy, the conflict might have had a serious cost to the economy, but it did. We had a good buffer. Let me give you an example. For instance, when we talked about revenue performance last year, there are times when the revenue team said, how do we make up our plan, because we're not really collecting tax in parts of the country, in Tigray, for instance. So they managed to add targets to other tax collection centers, and by and large achieve their target. Now, what does this tell you? What this tells you is, had it not been for this senseless war that TPLF has called on Ethiopian people, we would have marched significantly forward on many fronts. But that said, the humanitarian cost of this war, and also the direct cost in terms of humanitarian and other military expenditures, is significant. I can tell you one example. For instance, just this month, we've spent over 9 billion through NDRMC for humanitarian emergencies, purchasing food and so on for people that are displaced. But one, I think the silver lining is the cost of this is being shared broadly, as you know, by the Ethiopian public. The amount of support that goes to our defense forces, to humanitarian needs, this has become an agenda for all Ethiopians and peoples of Ethiopian origin all over the world. And that is heartwarming, and I think that has become a significant support in many ways. With that, let me end the overall update, but I think looking forward, what do I foresee next year and the medium, long term? Of course, as you all would hope, we are confident that this conflict will be over soon, and our people that are mainly affected by this conflict in Tigray and parts of Afar and Amara would resume normal life. But generally, on the economy, now that we have concluded a peaceful election that gave a huge mandate to this government, a frightening mandate in a way, because when millions came out and stood in line for hours, the message for us is they have a number of agendas on the economic front that they want the government to respond to. So we see next year a year where we would begin to meaningfully respond to these demands. But generally, with the significant enhancement in productivity, the hopeful, quote-unquote, rebound in tourism, the awakening of the export sector, the significantly enhanced revenue collection capacity, and our focus on productive sectors generally, we believe would signal a positive trajectory in general. and also some of the things we've done. For instance, in the SOE reform, we just concluded last week a review of all our SOEs. I mean, a phenomenal thing was not a single SOE had registered loss. This was remarkable because usually half of them would report loss a couple of years or so years ago. And now we'll build on this reform, and I think we pull that capacity together so that our SOEs can serve as one significant source of growth. But generally, the reforms we have introduced already, the capital market, the new telecom license, the partial privatization of telecom, privatization of some of the SOEs, the logistics sector reform, we believe will be, in a way, the quick boost to the economy, helping us advance on the economic transformation agenda. Let me stop there, Belene. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ayub. We can open it up to questions. If you could specify who your question is addressed to as you ask it. So let's start on this end, and we'll start 1 over here, Iskander 2, 3 over here, 4, and then 5.
This is Samson from Addis Fortune. My first question is, it's public knowledge that business are hugely impacted by the freezing of loans. Is there any plan to lose the restriction? And my second question is, given that the...
Can you repeat your question? It wasn't clear.
Okay.
And also, who are you addressing it to? To Dr. Ayub?
Dr. Ayub,
okay,
yeah.
Please specify.
Okay. So my first question is, like, it's a public knowledge that business are hugely impacted by the freezing of loans. So is there any plan to lose the restriction? And my second question is, given the impacts of the depreciation on the inflationary pressure, since it's making the imports expensive, and as some of the imports are not easy to replace locally, so, like, is there any plan, at least, to slow down the fast depreciation of birr? And my last question is, can you tell us the progress of the debt restructuring request made to G20 countries? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Skander Freo from VOA. Dr. Ayub, you said major macro challenge remains to be, inflation remains to be a major macro challenge. I know you touched on it, but what exactly is being done to address the spike in the cost of living or price of goods, currently prevailing across the country? And Bilane, if you could, I was wondering if you could comment on concern expressed by the associate spokesperson of the United Nations Secretary General over what she described as inaccessibility of the Afar-Abala road to transport aid to Tigray region. What can you tell us about TPLF fighters with alleged UNHCR refugee IDs? The president of the Amhara region said in a Twitter that some of these fighters who tried to infiltrate into the region through the Humara road, so Humara border, had these IDs. If you could comment on this as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, I'm Sisai from The Reporter. My first question is for Dr. Ayub. I will make it short. The first one is, I heard agriculture policy is on the way. It's preparing, government is preparing agriculture policy. So, to what extent it will exchange, the status quo of the agriculture scheme, which we are implementing currently? This is my first question. The second one is, how far, this northern conflict is affecting the flow or the commitment of aid and credit from partners. And my third question is, when will it stops this prevailing price surge of commodity? It's very high. Prices are surging from day to day. So where will will it stop? I mean, my fourth question is, what will be the fate of the Tigray regional state budget that is allocated back in June by the parliament? The other one is for Beleni, and the African Union Commission has assigned former Nigerian president as Horn African representative. So among other functions, this the representative function will be to mediate or start a good negotiation the federal government with Tigray forces. Is there any? I mean, what's the response from the federal government if this representative is coming to start negotiation with TPLF force? The second one is we heard that Tigrayan members of Tigrayan forces who have been in Sudan, trained in Sudan, have entered in Amhara regional state and starts an attack. Do you think? I mean, is there? Does it have any implication, or will it have any impact on the relation of Ethiopia and Sudan if they are training in Sudan, as we heard? The last one is the federal government is blamed for its inability to it's enabled to provide proactive information for the public, especially providing information for the local media. So is there any trend, any plan to change this trend of failing to provide sufficient information to the public? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Daniel Kasson from ETV. Recently we had the interview of the USAID Ethiopia Mission Director, St. John's. In his exclusive interview, he admitted that TPLF terrorist insurgents have looted his agency warehouses in the northern part of Ethiopia. And also, he had the know-how that aid resources have been reaching the TPLF insurgents, militants. Isn't it too late for the USAID director to admit or to confess that aid resources have been reaching the TPLF militants? For sure, it's better late than ever. But what does it imply? And also, I think there is a question of honesty in his statements. With regard to warehouses looted, after ETV broadcasted his interview, he tweeted that both warring parties, have looted resources of the USAID. What's your reflection on this statement? And if you admit this, for I'm talking to Bilani still. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed had a phone conversation with his Egyptian President of Djibouti, Ismail Omar Guelleh, and phone conversation he had. And can you tell us a little bit about it? And next, my question is to Dr. Yob. A bit elaboration about inflation, investment, and also the confidence you have about the economy. We have data from the Central Statistics. Inflation is on the rise, it's steadily increasing. You're telling that the Ethiopian economy is also increasing. It seems a paradox. The majority of Ethiopians are suffering with inflation. So how are you going to contain this rising inflation? The second one is you all know that Ethiopia's peace and security is being challenged. On the other hand, you are looking for attracting investment. If you don't have peace and security, it will be hard to have investors. So what will be, amidst this challenging situation of Ethiopia, what will be the fate of investment in this country? And also, what's surprising me is the confidence you have about the Ethiopian economy. You're telling us that it will have a positive trajectory in the coming years. From where does this confidence come from? Do you have tangible evidences to say so? Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is Ketan from Ethiopia News Agency. My first question is going to focus on the current affairs of Ethiopia. Since its encroachment into Amhara and Afar regional state, TPLF has brought tremendous humanitarian catastrophe, and it is also displaced people have not received enough aid recently, especially in Amhara and Afar regional state. So how do you communicate with the international community and also facilitating the humanitarian aid to this regional states especially? And also, what's the reality on the ground, especially to liberate those areas in Amhara and Afar regional status, those war-affected areas? Tell us about the reality. And also my final question to Dr. Iyo. Ethiopia for decades has been receiving financial aid predominantly from Western, and recently the relationship is getting deteriorated. So have you been seeking another option for financial support from another countries or partners? Thanks so much.
Okay. Any other pending questions for this round? Okay, if not, I will address the ones that were directed at me, and then I would give ample time to Dr. Eyob to respond to a lot of questions on the economy that you've raised. On the question with reference to the United Nations Secretary General spokesperson indicating that a humanitarian corridor is inaccessible, on the last briefing I had indicated that there were challenges in terms of accessibility through various corridors that the federal government had put into place. If you remember, there were 4 corridors that had been put in place, but because of TPLF's continued aggression and incursion, these corridors, at least 3 of the 4 had failed. So the one that has been available, the recent information that I have and that had been shared as of last time, is that trucks were already en route. I don't have further detail in terms of how many have reached, but this is still something that's being compiled by the federal entity that is responsible for doing this. But in terms of the allegation that this is not being facilitated enough, I had already also intimated last week that heeding the call of humanitarian actors and the challenges that they were facing, particularly what they referenced as bureaucratic bottlenecks, were being addressed, and in fact some of the checkpoints had been reduced from 7 to 3 to enable effective and efficient humanitarian assistance. So I'm not sure where that aspect is coming from. Nevertheless, there's still encroachments and there's still belligerence by the TPLF around that area, and I would reference it to the violent behavior and the violent nature of the TPLF that is making it very difficult for humanitarian actors. In fact, just a few hours ago, I believe that USAID has also issued a joint statement with OCHA referencing that some of their humanitarian actors have also been killed within the Tigray region, and some of these newer allegations are within the time frame after which the government's unilateral humanitarian ceasefire had been enacted and federal forces had withdrawn. So we need to be also, in a way, I think the pressure and these questions need to be further pushed towards the actors that are making humanitarian assistance inaccessible and difficult. The other question that Iskander, you had asked with reference to UNHCR refugee ID cards being found on some fighters. Well, we have indicated in the early days of the military engagement and the confrontation with the TPLF after they initiated their war that there were concerns that TPLF fighters, and particularly those that were responsible for the Maikadra massacre, had fled into neighboring Sudan and were masquerading as refugees. So if you remember, this was something, or these concerns were shot down by the international community, these concerns were shot down by the international media, but if anything, the evidence that is surfacing is pointing to our previous concerns, that these actors who were considered Samri forces as part of the TPLF forces who committed egregious crimes within the Maikadra could be the ones who have been also returning. So there's still further details that are coming in from the Amhara region with regards to that, but as far as the information that I have on hand, these ID cards have been extracted from those actors that have been violently attacking the National Defense Forces and the joint forces that are on the front lines. There was a question, I think it's a double question, you had also asked about the UNHCR one, so I will skip that. With regards to inability to provide sufficient information to the public, I'm not entirely sure if that is accurate and on what basis you would be measuring that on, because to my knowledge, sufficient updates are being given on state media, on various media outlets. The media committee affiliated state of emergency fact check is also issuing information as it comes through. Various federal entities that are responsible for humanitarian assistance when it's humanitarian assistance, and also other entities including the National Defense Forces, the Ministry of Defense, have also been providing updates, including yesterday by the Ministry of Defense and His Excellency Dr. Kana, who is the Minister for Defense as well. So there are frequent updates that are coming through, so I'm not entirely sure where that allegation is coming from. Somebody had asked with regards to the USID confession that TPLF has been looting humanitarian assistance. Is it late confession? This is not something that I could or that I'm in a position to judge, but what I can say is the federal government has been making the indication that humanitarian assistance is not only being bottlenecks are being created by TPLF in order for humanitarian assistance to reach the needy people of Tigray, but that they are also siphoning off. So we have had material evidence as of last week that you've seen images where TPLF fighters are also siphoning off humanitarian assistance from these particular organizations as well. So whether it's late or not, I think it's important that this acknowledgement has come from the humanitarian actors themselves. But for me, I think the question I would put is, why is the international media only amplifying it when it's coming from international organizations, whereas the government has been repeatedly saying, because we had factual information on the ground, that TPLF is looting humanitarian assistance intended for beneficiaries and not for fighters. So I leave that as an open one. Someone had raised the question of phone conversations that the Prime Minister has been undertaking. So just like the various trips that are being undertaken in visits, talking on a wide range of issues, I hope that you would also join me in understanding that the Prime Minister has various undertakings on various issues. So a lot of conversations do take place with the heads of state on international issues, on bilateral issues. So part of the conversation that had been had with Omar Gelle is also in light of that and should not be treated separately to the Prime Minister's engagements, because we are, or he is leading a nation of 110 million people with various issues and not only focused on what's happening on one part of the region. On humanitarian assistance for IDPs within the Amhara and Afar region, we had given a bit of a lengthy update last week. It is true, we have made a call to humanitarian actors, international humanitarian actors, to also scale up their support and scale up their attention to those that have been displaced by TPLF's aggressions. The information that I have had so far is that the Federal Disaster Risk Management Commission is still the one that is addressing the humanitarian needs, the bulk of the humanitarian needs, but a call has been made to other actors as well. I understand that WFP and UN OCHA had also been participating in one part of the round of assistance that had been delivered to the regions, but the call is still there for other actors to also join in and also give due attention to those that have been displaced as a result of these incursions by the TPLF. On operational matters that you have requested, I would defer to the National Defense Forces and the Ministry of Defense to give a timely update, as this is more operational and on the ground. So, sorry? Which are the other two questions that have been skipped? On your first question, I cannot, I don't have any information with regards to where these people were trained. What I have information on is that these people were found within the Amhara region, making an incursion as part of TPLF fighters, and these ID cards were found on them. So when there's further information that that would answer some of the questions that you have raised, that would be made available. For the second question that you had asked, again, when there's relevant information, we'll come back to you with that. Thank you. Let's have Dr. Eyob respond, and then we'll go back for a second round.
Thank you, Belene. In terms of the questions, right, I think I will try and structure them in groups to save time. On loans, I mean, in general, I think we have to look at this in two ways. First of all, some of the temporary measures that have been taken, for instance, the restriction on collateralized loans are of completely temporary nature. They have a specific purpose. As I said, there are some parallel market pressures that have nothing to do with economic fundamentals, so correcting those is important. These are very much of a temporary nature, and probably I don't know who asked this question, but I think you should check with the private sector, because most of the confusion has been cleared. For instance, initially there were questions whether this would affect export, whether this would affect normal business operations. So I think this has been clarified by the National Bank, but this has a specific policy purpose and would be lifted momentarily. And I think we talk to the private sector, we talk to the bankers. The sense we get is that they understand, and they, as long as a temporary nature, its impact on the rest of the economy is minimal. So that is the feedback we're getting from the market. But generally, when we say there is a deliberate policy measure by the National Bank to take a much prudent, a much stricter monetary policy stance, that would have some, definitely, there's a trade-off here. Let me just give you some stats. For instance, if you look at the July loan disbursements, it was about 125%. Or if you look at the entire year, overall new credit has increased by 40%. It's a conscious decision. The government wanted to encourage private sector, and also because of the COVID impact. When the general trend globally, and also the policy measure we took, was because of COVID, we should take our hands off the brake. You cannot have too strict fiscal and monetary policy when people are dying of a pandemic. But now, because this is probably having an impact on inflationary pressure, a conscious policy decision is taken to actually limit the economic activity. Yeah, this would have some costs. There will be a trade-off. But be it, because as somebody else asked, the major macro challenge now is inflation, right? So we need to rein in inflation. Inflationary challenges are the most critical macro challenge. So for this reason, the decision by the National Bank to increase reserve requirements, to also make it a little bit more expensive for banks to get access to money from the central treasury, from the central bank, is a cautious decision. And of course, there will be some trade-off here, but it would be helpful in the long run because somebody asked, economic growth when there is inflationary pressure would be eaten out. So you have to make sure you rein in inflation and control the inflationary spiral. So that is how we look at it. On depreciation, as I said at the beginning, we're not focused on quick fixes. So forex shortage is one of the binding constraints in the Ethiopian economy, and as such identified in the homegrown economic reform program. And the government made a conscious choice of let's deal with this gradually. Let's build our reserve buffers. Let's gradually improve the real effective exchange rate over time. So that policy measure, as I explained in my earlier remark, was actually showing significant sign of success because we are narrowing the gap between the parallel market and the official market, especially the rear was showing significant improvement, 30%. But of course, because of exogenous factors like the conflict in the north, the overall market structure issues, and some illegal activities, that was a conscious design by some to disrupt the economic activities, that gain has been eroded. But the overall approach of resolving this forex shortage in a measured, gradual approach is a very sensible policy approach that we strongly support. Does it have some costs? Yeah, it does. But don't undermine the impact of this distortion. When there is a distortion in the forex market, the major victim is the poor, not the banker, not the trader, the poor. So anybody who wants to take off the burden of the poor would focus on solving this problem from its roots and correcting it once and for all. I can't give you a timeline, but I can tell you confidently that we are still confident on our approach, and we'll correct this by the timeline we've already set for ourselves when we've launched the homegrown economic reform program. On just to add a little bit on the inflation because it's related. I hear you. Inflation is a major challenge, and it's affecting the average life of the poor. So that is why we're saying even if there's a trade-off between economic growth and reining in inflation, we choose the latter and take some strict monetary policy measures to control inflation. But that's not the only solution. Our understanding is unless we take a multiple-pronged approach by enhancing productivity, by correcting the market structure. For instance, a sudden 50% jump on price of salt, you can't explain this by any economic rationale. So there are critical market distortion issues that need to be corrected. We need to have strong bureaucratic capability, which the new government would introduce. So to just summarize, we are giving it all now. I mean, this is the most critical challenge. So even at the cost of economic growth, if this would affect a percentage or 2 percentage points of economic growth from our projection, it's worth it because inflation is the primary macro focus agenda now. On debt restructuring, yes, you would recall that as part of our reform program, we have requested for debt reprofiling, and as part of that, we have benefited from the SSI, and now we have requested the G20 common framework. A lot of work is ongoing. In fact, significant work. We are very grateful to our partners in the G20, to the Chinese authorities in particular as our major creditors, and to the IMF. And we have worked a lot on technical issues in reconciling debt data, in making the work of the creditor committee much, much easier. And we are on the finish line. So I would hesitate from specifying debts, but I must say we are on the finish line for the establishment of the creditor committee, and this work is advancing very well. But I want to take the opportunity to really thank our partners for their trust and confidence in the Ethiopian government and in the overall process. On the flow of aid from partners, as I told you at my initial remark, the data speaks to itself. Well, there is nothing more to add. It's an 80% performance on flows and 90% performance on commitments. I mean, this morning we've signed a significant aid agreement with one of our partners. So, look, the way I see it, our partners, there was some misunderstanding with some of our partners, I must say, on the way we see TPLF and the way they saw TPLF was different. Probably they saw a victim and they thought they just talked about humanitarian issues. But we saw a terrorist group because the entire Ethiopian public know what TPLF is. And that misunderstanding is clearing over time. I think as journalists and as someone from Ministry of Finance, I think it's my duty to also inform you that we should understand the context of this. We are very grateful of the partnership. US, for instance, we have very strong partnership, very solid, that's going on. But on some issues, we are really disappointed on how they have approached the entire conflict issue. And as close partners, we express our dismay, our disappointment. But please don't confuse that with a lack of partnership. And we are grateful for all the support the US is providing, including the recently signed 216 million humanitarian support that beefed up our support to people affected by the conflict. On the state of the Tigray region, I mean, you know, the Tigray region is caught hostage by a terrorist group. It's very sad. We need to make sure our people are freed from this hostage, and as you know, our defense forces are doing this, and the international community also need to call a spade because of the sheer arrogance of few individuals. Who suffers is the poor, the average poor, the farmer. But what the interest and intention of the Ethiopian government, you all know. The last few months, even before the ceasefire, how many improved seeds, how many fertilizers we've been sending to the Tigray region to make sure there is no lasting damage to our people, to our poor farmers in Tigray. I think you are all aware of this. But we all hope that Tigray will be free of this terrorist group. On the paradox, an interesting point. So you're telling me, where does this confidence come from? I think it just comes from careful reading of the economy. I was referring to an article, I don't know whether it was a BBC article or so early on, which headline story was the Ethiopian economy, I forgot the title. But when you read through, you just see that they're just talking about inflationary challenge, which we also admit to. There are critical inflationary challenges, and the cost of living is increasing, and we have to address this because that's the most important thing. We talked about quality of growth, and a significant amount of GDP growth, unless the quality of growth is ensured, is nothing. So I agree with you with that. But on the fundamentals, the numbers tell you. I mean, export figures, the revenue performance, what can you do about it? It's a fact. Where did it come from? It came from a measured policy decision. If we had not introduced, for instance, tax policy measures, with this conflict, it was impossible to maintain the amount of revenue we have mobilized. So that confidence comes from careful reading of the economy and from knowing the potential of this country. This country has huge potential. It's unfortunate that we are getting distracted by this nonsense conflict in the northern part, but the potential of the economy still stays. By the way, don't underestimate the potential. Of course, in parts of Tigray there is conflict, in parts of Afar, but as I told you earlier on, the Ministry of Agriculture, for instance, to make up for some of the adverse loss, is thinking of a bigger agricultural production plan in the rest of the country. So this is a big country. We have a potential to compensate for one when another party is affected. On investors, I mean, there are two kinds of investors. There are investors that always sit on the fence and wait for the right time to jump in. So those kind of investors would continue to look at. They ask. They probably read the storylines from the international media and think Ethiopia is completely disarray. So for those, we need to work on confidence building measures. But again, how do you deal with the 3.9 billion? It's a figure that speaks starkly to the fact that FDI has significantly increased last year, period. And this year, given some of the major reform that we plan to unleash further, we expect a further increase. But it doesn't mean, I'm not undermining the impact this conflict would have on the overall investor confidence. That we have to address. We have to win peace for our people, and not just for the investor, but for our people in general. But again, remarkable. I would just say the resilience of this economy, even for me, I found it at times astounding. Where is it coming from? Is a question that we ask each other every morning. But the silver lining again is once we win peace and all Ethiopians march together collectively, the sky is the limit. And finally, on request from partners, I don't know if I understood this question correctly. If you could repeat, or maybe you can take it on second. I did not quite get the question.
I think there was one person. Microphone.
Just repeating my second question.
Question that I missed.
Your reflection on the tweets by USAID.